One of the issues that I want to talk about, issues related to father, related to mother. So issues related to our parents. One of the things that I always hear in the sense of issues related to this is with women, right? So with girls, it's like, oh, she has daddy issues. Oh, she blah blah blah, daddy issues. Which, like, yes, right. So, but it's the same for both genders. Women have issues related to their mother and to their father, so not just daddy issues. But men also have issues related to father and related to mother. And then you can kind of see it a little bit when it comes to the whole dating scene, when it's the opposite gender, right? So for girls, daddy issues, which affects the way they go on and finding a partner, dating. But then something that I don't really hear a lot about, and that's kind of why I wanted to upload it onto the channel, is the issues with men when it comes to dating. So technically for us, it would be mommy issues, right? So daddy issues, she did this, blah, blah, and daddy issues. A guy does this, mommy issues. But again, in a sense, you have to understand that in that aspect of dating, it's because of the different gender, right? So men with mom, women with father. But something that I just was reflecting on, and it's still a little bit fresh, which is also why I'm like, let me write about it and let me just upload it. And as always, raw, right? Father issues with men, right? So daddy issues, right? And like I always tell you boys, these are just my thoughts, just based on my experiences, based on my readings, based on just how I go about navigating the world. So I say this to remind you that just because I think that this might be a thing does not mean that it applies. And if it applies, then awesome. But for that, you guys have to do the work yourselves. You guys have to read for yourselves, do research for yourselves, and never be easily influenced, especially from me, especially from anyone that you might be like, oh, that person has knowledge or that person knows what they're talking about, right? Because in a sense, everyone can have knowledge. Everyone can know what they're talking about. But again, this is just my thought. Do your own work, reflect on it, and then if it speaks, it speaks, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. So in regards to daddy issues, so with women, one of the things is like, searching for validation, searching for attention. But for men, it's overlooked in that sense too, because for men, it's also seeking validation or seeking that attention. And so this is what I mean for how maybe in a way it's a little bit different or overlooked for men. So the way it affects, this is what I wrote. This is what I wrote. The way it affects men, and I made a little exception. So like this could be different regardless of different factors. And in everything you have to consider that there are factors that may apply. There are factors that apply for me but don't apply for you. An example of that is being the firstborn. So I'm the firstborn. Number of siblings you might have, where you grew up, like the culture, all that, right? So different factors. So keep that in mind. But aside from that, right? So the way it affects men is that we as men, we feel a pressure from our own fathers. And the interesting part to me here is that whether the father was fully present or whether the father was not present in your life at all, right? So if your father was a good father, or if your father was a bad father, if your father was like this amazing person, or whether your father was a POS in that sense, right? So regardless of father being in the picture, father not being in the picture, regardless of how father was, right? We feel that pressure, right? Let's see, okay. We feel that pressure to make sure that we become successful and successful means different things to different men. So it's, again, your own personal life. Whatever success means to you, whatever success means to me, it might be different. But we feel this pressure from our father to become successful, right? To become successful at whatever it is that is driving us to be like, I just hope that eventually, my father looks at me and is proud of me, or the opposite, right? I never want to be like my father, so I hope that when he looks at me, he knows that I am different, and that will make me proud. But you see how it's the same. We still feel that sense of validation of like making our fathers proud, whether proud because I'm gonna show him, or whether proud because, yes, I want him to see me, that I'm still following his footsteps, or that I am the complete opposite of him, and now I am successful, right? So successful means different to different men. And this also is different in regards to how you're doing the work inside you, right? So depending on how healed you are, on how much work you're doing, on how your self-esteem is doing, eventually the goal is to not need to seek that validation, or want others to be proud of us, right? Because if you can just be proud of yourself, for yourself, for who you are, you're much closer to the end goal, which is, not needing any type of validation. So let's see. So yeah, and I say this because the next line I wrote, and one of the things in regards to father issues is that we as men want people to realize that we are successful. At times, we want other men to see that we are successful. And this varies too, depending on, like, say your father was not in the picture, you still kind of want to make him proud or make yourself proud and be like, I'm going to show him. And then you come across like a mentor or an older friend, or just someone that kind of gives you that warmth feeling, or that sense of like, this is kind of in a sense a father archetype, right? So just follow along with that. Then we start doing our work, we start trying to be successful, and then we're like trying to make that mentor, make that person proud of us, but at the same time we have in mind our father. And again, it is different, it varies. Sometimes there are cases where if your father was not in the picture and you don't care for your father, then that's that. Like, I'm not here to say, no, this is the only way to think about father issues. Again, this is just my idea. It's for you guys to just take it in and then just kind of reflect on it. And if it speaks, it speaks. And the reason why I keep repeating this is because a lot of times with these famous creators, these streamers, these famous people, mentors, coaches, they say their thoughts the same way that I'm just saying my thoughts, right? Excuse me. They say their thoughts, and coffee again. And they say their thoughts, they preach, and people just take it as like, oh, that's like the absolute truth. So that's why I keep repeating it, right? These are just my thoughts. I don't want you guys to be like, that's it. That's the main thing. So keeping it like that. Okay. But the one person's attention that we really the one person's attention that we really want to make sure actually notices. So the person we want to actually notice our success will be father, and hopefully we get their approval in a sense, right? Whether we get their approval that like, hey, yeah, like my son did well, or we get the approval of like, you're much better than your father who was not in the picture. And the interesting part about this is that even if the father was not successful or very successful, whether he was very respected or not respected, whether he was a real man, and this, I say this because of the culture, however he was seen as by like society, or by maybe like the friends around him, or maybe the people that know him, like regardless of all those things that we hear from other people, in our mind we still want to get their validation, we still want their approval, because again, that's father. And it you I'm very I tend to be very careful with the way I say things, especially once they're on there, right? We cannot remove ourselves from who our father was. My thought, if you like, no, like my father was a POS, he was never in my life, like that's okay, yeah, like you take it like that. But to me, just the way I think, there, because the DNA's there, there's just things that you can't really remove yourself from the person that contributed to making you, to giving you life. So that's why I say, regardless of how father was seen, we still want to make them proud. We still want to be like, we still want to seek their validation. And I say this because sometimes we look at these things and are like, well, why do I need validation from that person, right? That person was blah blah, or why would I care what that person thinks? That person doesn't even have their life together. And sure, like in that sense, it makes it clicks. It makes sense. But taking those comments and trying to fit it into the father archetype of like, my father was this, so who cares about him? Subconsciously, like you're still wanting that validation. And again, another reminder, this varies, right? Depending on how well you are doing the work in you. That's why I tell you guys, inner work. This first, right? Inside first, because then it'll reflect and it'll help you navigate the world, right? Your outer world. But this thought, it varies depending on how healed you are, right? How much you feel good about yourself, how much you need or don't need validation. Well, and then an example, right? I always like examples. At least for me, it always clicks from myself to myself. An example. We are all getting, say, higher level of education, and this speaks a little bit into my personal life, right? So we are getting higher level of education. I'm going after my degree, I'm going after this degree, I'm going after this certificate, I am just going after these things that validate, or that tell the world, tell society, hey, like he has this much education, he completed this, right? So we're going after that. And then, even then, at that point, if our fathers barely had any education, if our fathers weren't even smart, if our fathers didn't choose a professional career, if our fathers just completed one semester of college, or if our fathers dropped out of high school and all that, we would still be like wanting to make them proud, even though, again, in order to make sense. So why would I want this person to be proud of me because for me having a degree, if that person doesn't have a degree, or if I have this much training, or if I have this professional career and they don't have it, on that end it makes sense, right? Because like, yeah, like who cares? But with, again, father archetype, you cannot really remove it in that sense. So that's an example that came to mind, where like you see yourself doing well in this aspect of life, and in that same aspect of your life, in that same aspect of life where you are succeeding, you know that your father was not successful in that same aspect of life where you're succeeding. Does that make sense? But even then, you still look at that at father, and you're like, no, I still want you to be proud of me. I still want you to know that I am doing this. Even though you don't understand it, or you don't see it, or even if to you it's not important, to me it is important, and I still want that validation. Does that make sense as to how we men have father issues, and if we don't resolve them, or if we don't even think about stuff like this, right? Just how I'm putting it out there, then it can just go over our heads, and then in life there's just something missing, or in life things happen and you're just like, what, like why, or like why father issues, right? And again, depending on, obviously it's not for every aspect of your life, but in that sense, since we're talking about father issues in your life where it speaks to a father related issue, that's where you ask yourself, like, am I like, how do I heal, how do I grow from this? Because the same way that girls have father issues is the same way that we men have father issues as well. And then the same way that we have mommy issues is the same way that women have mother issues. But for this video, for this posting, I wanted to open up a little bit of that thought on father issues.